This stream is sponsored by Brilliant.
We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be normal.
AM EDT pressure looks good.
Traveling up. Roger roll with Atlantis.
Water towers can fly!
Tango Delta nominal.
Flight outside SC off. Bring in SC off.
Yikes. You bet. Okay. We don't need any more of these.
And alive from the West Coast, it's Saturday morning. Good morning, y'all. It's time for another launch here. Hopefully, out at Vandenberg Space Force Base. It is California Day. We've got a SpaceX Falcon 9 somewhere out there. The SARah-1 mission on top, but as of right now, still a little bit of marine layer in play. Can't quite get eyes on the rocket. Again, John Galloway for NASASpaceflight here. We've spooled up a stream to bring you live coverage of the launch today. High hopes that the sun will do its thing and burn this marine layer off, but here we are. Let me know that you can hear me just fine in chat. 5x5. Looks like we're good. 5x5 on audio, 4x2 on the view. Nice. I don't think we're going to get away from the West Coast, Best Coast discussion here today. But we're going to go ahead and go for it. T-minus 27 minutes. Got some friends with me here in the studio, starting up at the top with Mr. Chris Gebhardt. Chris, how you doing this morning?
I am doing just fine, Das. I think as our commentators normally ask when it's clear at Vandenberg, what happened to the fog machine? Well, here you go.
Looks like it's working today, Chris. Of course, Chris is the assistant managing editor for NASA Spaceflight. You've heard him online many times. Also with us today, another voice you've heard, Mr. Thomas Berghardt. Thomas, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Das. Also looking forward to the second Falcon 9 of the weekend, and also hoping that this fog does burn off relatively quickly so we get some good views of it.
Excellent. Thomas, of course, is the news director here for NASA Spaceflight. And we've got a new voice. Not really a new voice, a voice you may have heard before if you've watched our museum shows, those shows we do with the Intrepid Museum up in New York City, the Virtual Astronomy Live. Please welcome for the first time on a NASA Spaceflight launch broadcast, Alicia Siegel. Alicia, how you doing this morning?
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Excellent. Alicia is actually the public programs producer out at Intrepid Museum, and she rolled out this morning to join us on this broadcast. So, Alicia,
I did, me in the
massive
fog.
thanks. Yeah, you in the fog. Let's not make this a thing where you show up in the launch has
Oh
fog.
no, I don't want to be like the curse. No, none of that.
All right. So again, coming up on 25 minutes here. Not sure if we'll see a T-minus 20-minute vent, but let's talk a little bit about the mission. What is going on today here, Chris?
Yeah, so this is the launch of the SARah-1. SARah spelled capital S, capital A, capital R, lowercase ah, just to send all the English people's minds aflutter on that. But there's a reason for that, and we'll get to that. But this is the launch of the German the German Earth observation satellite network called SARah. And SARah is going to be a 3-satellite constellation with SARah-2 and SARah-3 scheduled to follow currently later this year on 2 other Falcon 9 rockets. And these are going up to both enhance and replace the SARah Loop, German satellite reconnaissance system that has been up there since the 2000s. And because there's some military applications to the SARah constellation, the exact resolution and specifications of what these satellites are going to be able to see is not really known. All that is known is that they will be able to have greater resolution than the SARah Loop satellites that are currently up there. And those carry either a 0.5 meter or 1 meter resolution capability, depending on how narrowly they're looking at the ground. So if they're looking at the ground in like a 5x5 kilometer chunk, hey, 5x5, see? I knew what I was
Nice.
doing there. They can get down to half-meter resolution, and if they're looking at 60 by 8 kilometer swaths of Earth, they can get down to 1 meter resolution. And the only real thing we know about SARah and SARah-2 and SARah-3 is that they can do better than that. And again, that's because of their military application and usage on this. So in gist, that's what the SARah constellation is. The Falcon 9 will be taking the first one into a 98.4-degree inclination, which is why we are at Vandenberg. And that will be into a 750-kilometer circular orbit, which does make it sun synchronous, meaning that the orbits are timed so that they bring the satellites back over the same position on Earth's surface at the same local sun angle or same local sun time or solar time. And other milestones today, this will be, because it's not a Falcon 9 launch this month without a milestone attached to it, this is the 25th Falcon 9 flight of the year, and it is June 18th, and there are more to come this year. So if you sort of extrapolate that out, they're well on their way to hitting somewhere between 50 and 60 launches this year of the Falcon family of vehicles. And this is booster 1071-3, so making its third flight today. It previously launched the two National Reconnaissance Office missions, NROL 87 and 85 earlier this year, also from Vandenberg. So it is definitely a Vandenberg proud booster that we've got here today. So that is our overview of the mission and what is launching here today. And I promise you, there is a rocket somewhere in that shot.
Yeah, we're going to be keeping an eye and hoping that the fog does burn off. Like Chris mentioned, SARah-1 is the primary payload on today's flight, and we should talk about something else that we should be keeping an eye on that we'll probably get a hint about after the launch. Because a long time ago, when the SARah-1 mission and the SARah-2 and 3 satellites as well showed up on the SpaceX manifest, I think we were looking yesterday, the original NSF forum post for this mission was 9 years ago.
9 years?
This
Yeah.
9 years.
Thank you.
This flight has been on the manifest for years, and it's been a long time coming. Finally, at the launch date for satellite number 1, but in that time, we also got some differing reports that there were going to be rideshare payloads on this mission. We talked about this is a return to launch site landing profile. So the first stage, 1071, will be landing at landing zone 4, right back next to Space Launch Complex 4 East, and right on cue, there's the RTLS merge banner on the forum thread. So there we go.
I was going for the 8/8 of 2013. This thread was created on the NASASpaceflight forums August 8 of 2013. Sorry, Thomas, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, all good. So, that return to launch site profile gives you some insight into the fact that it's a pretty low mass payload. It is going to a low Earth orbit, so all things considered, not a super high energy requirement mission, which allows that booster to reserve enough energy to return to the launch site. It is worth noting, though, that in that there might still be margin in there for satellites in addition to SARah-1. We've seen a lot of rideshare missions do return to launch site profiles. SpaceX or the German space authorities and anything, no one has confirmed any rideshare payloads on board today's flight. But that we do know that was in the plans at some point over the past 9 years. So the plans have clearly changed and been fluid. After the launch, we'll have to keep an eye on whether additional objects are detected in orbit by amateur spacecraft trackers. The satellite itself, like we mentioned, has military applications, which is why a lot of details on the satellite are not known. But we have seen images of the satellite. So it's not like an NRO satellite where, yeah, good luck getting any single photo of the thing. We have actually seen what SARah-1 looks like. However, SpaceX has also announced that there will be no live views from the upper stage during today's flight, which kind of coincides with other classified payloads.
Right.
It is unclear whether that is from SARah-1 or whether maybe there are rideshare payloads on this mission that are more classified than SARah-1, if that makes sense. All of those things to keep an eye on as this campaign carries out, and we'll have to see if SARah-1 is truly alone in that payload fairing. It might be, it might not be. And that also, of course, coincides with a different mission launching in less than 24 hours from Florida.
Yeah.
That actually has a very similar situation, but we'll talk about that on that launch broadcast.
Been a busy couple days here.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
the clandestine days. Like,
Yeah.
This really is like a triple header, though, right? Yesterday you guys had Starlink. Today we've got
Mhm.
SARah-1. Tonight Global Star. It's like they're
It
just
is a
going.
very busy weekend, and of course, it all caps off with some SLS testing too. So we'll be busy,
yeah,
What a good
yeah.
problem to have. Hey,
right?
I've
Mhm.
got a question. The name of the mission is sort of weird. It's like Sarah, but it's capital SARAH. Which, I mean, I don't know who Sarah is or why we've decided we need to send her to space, but why is it called SARah-1?
Yes, so I can definitely take the SAR part, the part that's capitalized. That
Okay.
stands for synthetic aperture radar. So these are synthetic aperture radar satellites, meaning, which is a big fancy term for they can see the ground no matter what is obstructing the ground from an optical sense. So if
Even
they're coming
fog?
over, exactly. Ah, you guessed it,
Mm.
Das. I was gonna say, like,
Excited
so
for
if
that.
SARah-1 was in orbit right now, looking down at Vandenberg, the satellite would be able to see the launch pad, the rocket, and everything on the ground because it can see through all different types of weather. And that's what it means in that regard. For that, Thomas, do we know what the AH means? I know what
I
the
am
LUPE means on the previous generation that they're replacing. It means a magnifying glass. But I don't know what AH stands for in this regard.
I am furiously Googling it right now, and I don't actually have an answer for you. I will
Yeah,
let you know if I find one, though.
I thought it was
Thank
just a
you.
catchy name for it.
Yeah.
They just completed it. Is this like a new type of radar? Is this radar flown on other things before?
This has actually
Um.
been around for a long time. So the SAR
Yeah.
technology has been around since like the Cold War era in the 1950s. Most notably, actually, the SR-71 had it on it, but it's been used for a ton of science too, because like he was saying, you can see through clouds. You can also see through things like soil and ice and stuff. So scientists have used it to look at lava under volcanoes and, finding like ancient waterways and cities under deserts and sunken ships under ice. And we've also used it a lot in space too. So it was used on Magellan. We could, see the terrain on Venus, and Cassini showed us those lakes on Titan. And then also back to the Apollo era too. So they were looking at, the moon. The Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter actually used it to see the ice water on the moon too. So it's been around for quite a while.
Yeah. So if anybody was wondering, I was really wondering why is it sort of capitalized weird that SAR is for synthetic aperture radar, which is the technology used on the satellite. Thanks, y'all.
And best I can figure, there's no particular reason for naming it Sarah, or at least they haven't said anything, because I cannot find even a single reference to why it would be named that. But I'll keep looking. We've got
At
two more
least
launches to figure it out.
At least it's not like OSIRIS-REx, like the worst
Oh, God.
acronym that's ever been generated for a spacecraft.
Oh, but wait, the name of that mission is changing.
Oh,
Oh
yeah,
no.
that's not even OSIRIS-REx anymore.
Yeah, once it drops off the sample from Bennu in September of next year at Earth and does its divert maneuver, it's going to alter its orbit to go to Apophis. And once it does that, it will become Osiris Apex for Apophis Explorer. So
Okay.
Okay.
if you didn't like Rex, now you get Apex. So there you go. But anyway, back to SARah-1. Yeah, see, ask a question about a random other mission, and sometimes I know stuff.
There you go. Hey, let me
Also,
hit some
totally
super
thank you to
chat.
Lockheed Martin for the interview and the article that we published this week detailing all of that.
Excellent.
Hint.
Let me hit some super chats really quickly. Hey, Remy Turk, thank you so much for the 20 euros. Says another day, another launch. Here's a couple of bucks for the empty pad watchers. Nice, Remy. We appreciate the support there. Hopefully we get an empty pad. Unfortunately, today may be a day where we don't see a rocket on the pad after T-0, but not because it's launching. It might be because we can't see it due to the fog.
Welcome to
Musical Wolves.
Vandenberg.
Yeah. Musical Wolves says, would a Raptor static fire remove the fog? I'm not sure that we should be using the rocket engines as weather control devices. That's
I mean, I'm in full support of this, but
the question is, which way would you point it? Would you put it like at the press side and point it at the target? Would you like put it in a circle pointing outwards around the launch pad?
I
Not sure
don't
what the
know. But if
plan
you
would
give me
be.
enough money, I'll engineer a solution for it.
It'd be good to test. Hey, I'll help live stream it if we do those tests. Hey, Mike Kretsch, thank you so much. 5 by 5. Great to hear you guys. Good to hear you this morning as well, Mike. Appreciate the support. We've got Christoph Hell, or hey, how do we pronounce that? One of my German speakers will help me out there. Says old satellite hardware question mark. I don't think that it's old hardware. I think it's just the technology that we've been using for a while. And somebody can correct me on. There's bound to be the right way to pronounce that, and I do not know what it is. Musical Wolves. Was Vandenberg chosen because of the classified fog?
Yes.
Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
I like this one.
Clever, very clever.
It works in its favor. Yes. And to answer a question I just saw flash across chat, fog is not an obstacle for liftoff.
Aha.
For rockets, and also would not have been an obstacle for launching the space shuttle out of Vandenberg either.
Excellent.
Yes.
So it may go and we may just hear it go as opposed to seeing it go. Maybe it'll be bright enough to sort of peer through, or I guess shine through the fog. Tim C gives $4.99 to the NSF SAR fund, or SAR NSF fund.
Yeah, nice.
Could we have like a live stream camera that actually uses synthetic aperture radar so we can see through the fog? I'm game.
I mean, I'm game. Synthetic aperture radar companies, if you're listening.
There you go. James says the best alarm clock ever is getting a notification saying it's launch day with NASA spaceflight. Love the workout. James, thank you so much. And then Kristen Woodward as well. Appreciate all the support across the board there, y'all. We're able to keep on showing up and rolling out to, look, I'm going to say see rocket launches, but that might not work out today. To
Might
experience, hear rocket launches,
You might hear a
experience
sonic
rocket.
boom when it comes back.
There you
That's
go.
true.
That's
But we
true.
appreciate the support there, y'all. How are we looking on questions? Do we have some questions?
We do have some questions. Let's see here. First one from a name that I'm not going to try to pronounce. My apologies, but excuse me. The question is, does SpaceX replace the landing legs for a new launch, or do they just remove them for transport?
Yeah, so when they're transporting the boosters definitely across the country, they do take a lot of the outside equipment off. I'm gonna choose to call it that. Like they take the grid fins off, they take the landing legs off to transport them, and then they typically get reattached when they're back at the launch site. So yes, they do take them off for transport. As far as I know, between launches, the only reason they would remove them is if they needed some type of refurbishment. But we definitely see at Cape Canaveral and the Port of LA, when the boosters come back, that they just pick them up, put them on a stand, and then fold the landing legs up and move the booster vertical for putting it on the transportation pads and everything that they need to go. So that's as much as we know in terms of that. But yeah, I don't believe they remove the landing legs unless they absolutely have to.
Yeah, I gotcha. We've seen a couple different recovery processes too at the West Coast port and Port Canaveral on the East Coast, and how the teams are kind of tailoring their specific operations to how the rocket has to get transported back for the next launch. So, a good question there. All right, well, this isn't really a question, but I thought it was a good message. Valkyrie says, "Need the SARah to see the rocket today. That would be helpful." Thanks for the message there. Keith does ask, how far is the landing zone from the pad? And I actually looked up the answer to this. It is about 400 meters between the launch mount at Launch Complex 4 East and the landing zone 4, which is actually on the former site of Launch Complex 4 West. So there you go. Hoping to see both from roughly the same location this morning. And then Joe asks, is Jack or Michael on location? Michael is on location, so Michael Baylor out there for NASA Spaceflight, and he is also joined by Pauline Ekelin out there. That was the local NSF team for today.
Thank you for that. I didn't put that in the intro. Thanks, Thomas.
The real
No
heroes
worries.
of the day.
Let's see. Karsten says he just tuned in. Where are the 4 towers?
Hidden by fog. A joke answer. Vandenberg does not have 4 towers around the Falcon 9, and the 4 towers being referred to are lightning protection systems. So there are no 4 towers around the Falcon 9 out at Vandenberg, as there are at Florida, which we will see later today.
Yeah, California doesn't have the lightning problem that Florida has, but maybe if someone invents fog protection towers, that would be helpful. Um, let's see, got some other super chats coming in here too. Mark says, "Who did Jack bribe to turn the fog machine on?" Nice. Alicia, Thomas, Chris, Dawson, Michael Fan Club. There we go.
Nice.
Appreciate the support there, Mark. Space Nerd says, "One of the best YouTube channels covering launches. Love you guys. Appreciate the support there as well." And Xavier says, "My birthday happens to be tomorrow, so this Falcon 9 birthday candle can make it up for that." Thank you, Xavier, and a belated happy birthday. Hopefully, Global Star, depending on your time zone, is a birthday candle on your actual birthday. So there we go. Coming up on 8 minutes to launch here. As far as we know, everything proceeding right on schedule for today's liftoff. Still hoping that fog will clear out just enough to get a glimpse of launch today. Launch and landing, of course. But everything on track for launch so far. If you have any more questions, please tag us at NASASpaceflight in chat.
And really quickly, y'all, you've seen the name on the stream before. A massive thanks to our sponsor for today's stream, Brilliant.org. If you're interested in keeping up with your ongoing, I guess, education, you could say, you want to learn cool science topics, Brilliant.org is an excellent interactive way to learn new things or maybe get refreshed on some things you already know but don't remember because it was in high school 20 years ago. There's all sorts of different courses that you can take here. I've chosen one that I thought was relevant for today about light. This is Scientific Principles of Light, and it says light bending. Light always finds the fastest route. I do hope that some light finds its way from the rocket to us here today, because sometimes the fastest route is through fog. But there's all sorts of different interactive lessons that guide you through critical thinking. This seems to show the ball bending versus the path of light going between the dog and the everything. There's interactive questions. It helps you out. So if you don't understand the answer, you can actually click Show Explanation, and it'll do a little flip there and show you what's going on. But if you want to help continue to support what we do, check out brilliant.org/NASASpaceflight. Get a discount there signing up for some of the courses in their program, and it might be a cool way to continue your own understanding of the universe. Thanks again to Brilliant for helping us out.
So, and I just actually saw a question here in chat, and Alicia, I'm really curious on your answer to this because when I met you a couple of months ago down here for the Crew 4 launch, right? That was your first launch experience.
It was, yeah.
And everything. And someone was just asking in chat, like, has anyone ever like accurately described the feeling of the sound when it hits you? And I'm really curious for you who had like no expectation of what that was going to be. What was that like being, very close to a Falcon 9 when it lifted off?
Yeah, that was amazing. I was down at the press site for that. We actually got 2 launches. I got really spoiled for that with the NASA Social. But for the Crew 4 launch, yeah, so we were a little bit closer to that rocket than the Starlink one. So the delay wasn't quite as long. But oh my gosh, it's just like this rumbling that starts off low and then it gets louder and louder and it just like overtakes you. And there's this crackling and it just kind of gets into like your chest and just rumbles around. And I was trying to figure out how to describe it to somebody. And this is going to sound so crazy, but if you've ever blown up a balloon and you kind of like take your thumb and you like rub it across the outside of like a rubber or like a, like a balloon, just like a balloon, like a birthday party balloon.
Yeah.
If you like have it blown up and you kind of like rub your finger like across the outside of it, it makes this strange noise. I can't really describe it, but that actually is very much what it sounded like. So everyone's gonna go home and now you're gonna try this out. But really, that actually is what it kind of. I don't know. It was just this very strange kind of like just bouncing around, crackling feeling in your chest, and just really overtakes you. It's something you experience. It's just a full body experience, and it just sounds alive almost. It's unbelievable.
Yes. And I'm glad you said that full body experience because
Yeah.
a lot of times, and depending on the power that the rockets have, and especially the more powerful they are, you can sometimes feel the air rattling in your lungs.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely incredible. Yeah.
Mhm.
Really, really, truly is. And thank you for that. Yeah, because I know that's always an interesting question that we get that I always love to ask that after someone has experienced it for the first time. But yeah, so we are at 4.5 minutes to go in the countdown. So at this point, the strong back would be retracting to its launch position here. If you could see the rocket.
Real quick,
On the
Chris.
yeah.
I just did a little bit of a estimate correction on our countdown there. I'm trying to
Ah.
synchronize with SpaceX, so it was just over 5 minutes now. We added a little bit of time to the clock to sync up with the SpaceX clock.
There we go. So at 5 minutes mark and counting. Yes, take two.
Yeah, sorry.
The strong back will, the strong back will be preparing to pull back into its launch position. At Vandenberg, it actually pulls back to the launch position now. It doesn't do the pre-pull back and then throw back like the transporter erectors do at the Cape, just because we don't need to launch as quickly and we don't need to turn it around as quickly out at Vandenberg, and it is actually the original version of the transporter erector. But on board, if you are just joining us, is the SARah-1 German military Earth observation satellite, the SAR standing for synthetic aperture radar, meaning that its cameras can see through any weather conditions down to the ground. While there are obviously military applications for this too, it is important to note that many of our SAR satellites up in orbit are specifically for disaster response and disaster relief operations, because they can see through all weather conditions and they can monitor the ground for things like landslides after earthquakes and how terrain might have changed after certain natural disasters. Or even man-made disasters where weather systems then come in and block optical telescopes. They are very, very useful for that type of operation. And as many people have noted, it could see through the fog to see the rocket today, down to the ground. But yeah, synthetic aperture radar, many, many different versions, but SARah-1 being the first of the upgrade to Germany's Earth observation fleet, upgrading the SARah Loop, and I might be mispronouncing that, but upgrading the SARah Loop constellation with LUPE standing for magnifying glass on that one. So that is what we are about 3 hours away from. 3 hours, 3 minutes. Let's
3
try that
hours?
again. 3 minutes. Yeah,
I was gonna say we're really
like,
early.
I'm like frantically refreshing Twitter to see if they announced the new T0. Like, wait, what? 3 hours?
Hey, I'll always say the random thing that freaks people out.
Really quick
3
before we
minutes.
get into the business end of this countdown here, a couple quick rapid fire questions. Bob asking, what direction will this flight go? This flight will be flying south from Vandenberg towards a sun-synchronous orbit. What's the exact inclination, Chris? I know you said it earlier.
98.4 degrees.
Thank you, Chris. 98.4 degree inclination, so slightly retrograde technically. So south-southwest from the coast of California. And then Dalton asking, what is the flight number for this booster? So this is booster 1071 making its third flight, so 1071-3.
And the other thing to mention, this is the 25th flight of the Falcon 9 rocket this year, and it will be a return to launch site landing at Vandenberg.
Right there, right across the valley. It's going to be right there. You can see where it's
going to be
land.
right there. Yep, and
We promise.
We promise. Yes. But
It'll
other
be
than
like that
welcome
old
to Vandenberg.
SpaceX stream where they were like, "There's a rocket there, we promise," for like
We
a really
promise.
fogged-in Vandy launch.
Well, we're now. Do we have the countdown stopped? No. Oh no, it's still clicking forwards. All right, we're good. Excellent.
Yep, coming up on a minute and a half to go, and we're going to stand by to see what we can see. We should definitely hear the rocket, at the very least. That'll be our confirmation that it has, in fact, launched. But we'll keep an eye out, see if we get some glow and some glimpses of the liftoff here. But everything appears on track for launch, more importantly.
Excellent. Coming up on a minute.
Seeing a bunch of super chat support as well. Appreciate all of the support from everyone, and thank you all for tuning in. We will come back to some questions and things after the rocket gets flying.
Indeed, and at T-minus 1 minute and counting, Falcon 9 should be entering startup at this point, meaning the vehicle has taken control of its countdown and is now pressurizing its tanks for liftoff, and we should have the final go from the launch director here momentarily.
All right, we're going to bring up that field audio, the microphone we have in the field, so we can hear this launch. We may get a little bit of side chatter just as we do it, but All right, there we go. We are getting field audio, so we're ready to go. Coming up on 30 seconds.
Indeed, and fog itself is not a constraint for liftoff from Vandenberg.
$20 seconds-ish.
We have liftoff confirmed of SARah-1.
Thank you, Thomas.
Wow.
Let's stand by to see if we can hear some.
Welcome to Vandenberg.
There we go.
Audio confirmation of a liftoff. I don't know that Michael and Pauline see it at all.
This is where the vehicle will experience the
Falcon 9. First stage about 2,200 kilometers per hour, 23 kilometers in altitude now, doing its thing, pushing this mission uphill for the first part of the ascent. And yes, loud indeed, as chat is saying.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
I guess Michael and Pauline couldn't see the rocket, but the rocket couldn't see them either. Looking down at the fog bank, you could just see it lying along the coast there.
Hey, SARah-1 can see them.
Ah.
And you know, I've been at Vandenberg where that is what you see. Sometimes that is the experience you get being there on the ground at Vandenberg. So we wanted to share that with you. As to what you
Welcome.
see sometimes.
I made that decision. Like, even though I could have swapped over to the SpaceX feed, I just let it show the fog and listen to the noise. How many times do we just listen to it and experience it?
Indeed, and here we go, main engine cutoff on the first stage. We have stage separation and ignition of the Merlin vac engine on the second stage of the Falcon 9 there. You can see that the velocity of the stage right around there was just over 5,000 kilometers an hour, and the orbital speed for the second stage will be about 27,000 kilometers per hour. So you can see how much velocity change the second stage really has to do there after the first stage hands off to it for these particular missions. But now we are going to follow the first stage back to the ground.
Yep. Right now, the first stage is firing horizontally, so the way this boost back burn works, 3 of the engines on that first stage fire basically level to the ground, but against the direction that the rocket was traveling originally, killing all of its horizontal velocity. And it does that until it reaches a trajectory where it will naturally fall just off the coast of landing zone 4, and then it will gradually make that final correction through its entry and landing burns.
And I'm sure we've got some people going, wait, don't they normally have the views of the second stage? Don't they normally have the second stage altitude and speed? They do for non-classified missions. And this is a German military mission. And in this case, the customer made the request that coverage be limited to the booster return after stage separation, which is a very common practice even for U.S. Department of Defense flights. So not a surprise that The German military would have made that request to SpaceX to not show any information from the second stage during that climb to orbit. Nonetheless, we do know the orbital inclination of 98.4 degrees, and we do know that SARah-1 is going to a 750-kilometer circular orbit, which would make it sun synchronous. But that is why we have no data or telemetry being shown from the second stage, just because of the military nature of the satellite on board.
Also, it is worth noting, so SpaceX did mention in their official updates that the lack of cameras on the upper stage, or lack of camera views from the upper stage, they probably still have the cameras, they're just not showing them.
Right.
Was at the request of the German military, which does kind of put a notch in the theory of maybe there's other rideshare payloads on board. It sounds like it was a result of SARah, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Either way, 5 minutes into the flight here, you can see the first stage grid fins have deployed, and the first stage is kind of just coasting, floating in microgravity right now. If you take a look at the telemetry on the bottom left, you see it has passed its apogee, or the highest point in its trajectory. It is now falling back towards Earth, and we're going to see it start to catch up and enter some more atmosphere here. And that'll get ready. That'll start slowing the stage down a little bit, but the big deceleration will, of course, be that entry burn.
Indeed. And one thing, if you watch the drone ship landings of the Falcon 9 boosters, you will notice that the speed that they are going is much, much higher at entry burn. They're going about 7,500 kilometers per hour at their entry burn, and this one's going to be much, much slower, partly the result of the boost back burn, but also result of the lower overall velocity that the booster was going at engine cutoff versus some of those longer first stage burn profiles. So you can really see how that velocity changes depending on what profile your booster is flying as it brings itself back to its landing site, be that return to launch site or drone ship.
And now here comes the entry burn. You can see the grid fins twisting into position there. And there's ignition, igniting that center engine first to help settle the propellant, and then 2 more engines for a 3-engine entry burn.
And then down comes that velocity.
There we go.
Which is what we love. You can also see that that entry burn is much lower in the atmosphere for the return to launch site landings than it is for the drone ship landings, where they're coming in at a higher velocity and they need to do that burn higher up to reduce the overall velocity and heat that the Falcon 9 will take during its atmospheric entry.
Having the clouds there really gives you sort of a sense of perspective when the rocket maneuvers, because you
It
can
really
see it
does, right?
rolling right now, and you can see it when it needs to change its attitude with pitch or yaw. It's really cool to have those clouds there just as like a point of reference.
So now you can see, even though those engines are no longer firing, you can see the speed on the bottom left continuing to decrease, and that's because air resistance drag is doing the work now as the stage enters thicker and thicker air, passing under 5 kilometers altitude now and really approaching those clouds rapidly.
And we're going to listen in to see if we don't hear sonic booms on the field mic.
Sonic boom should be just before landing here.
Well,
and there you
There
go.
We heard them.
Very nice.
Wow.
Falcon 9 has landed at Slick 4, or landing zone 4 rather, which was the previous Slick 4 West. You could definitely hear them ricocheting through the valley there and everything. So a gorgeous landing of the Falcon 9 here from the onboard cameras that they have.
It's there. Here's cutting back to our camera. I don't believe they saw it coming down. Maybe they saw a little bit of a light in the sky, but I guarantee you that the people out there heard it. We turned on that field microphone and you could hear the reaction in real time as the sonic booms hit the folks viewing over there at the press site. It's the craziest thing. Like, you know that it's coming. You know that the sonic booms are going to happen. You understand the physics and how it's going to work, and it takes time. And you are never prepared for when it goes from being quiet to being sonic boom town all of a sudden. It catches you by surprise every single time. Wow.
That caught me by surprise, and I wasn't even there.
I know, and yeah,
amazing.
and Das, you are exactly right. It gets you every time. Like, I mean, I will be standing there with the camera tracking that booster coming down when they do RTLSs and just go, okay, don't get scared, don't get scared, don't get scared, don't get scared, and then my whole body like shakes when it happens. Yeah.
Yep. I think
Full
the first
body
time
experience. That's what I
It
was
is.
saying.
Yes,
It really is.
exactly.
the first time I heard it in person down at the Cape, I was surprised because I had on like lightweight hiking pants. And when the sonic booms hit me, I could actually feel the fabric of my pants vibrate. And so live on my stream, I'm like, oh my gosh, it moved my pants. And I'll never live that down. So anyways, folks, we are going to have to pack up really quickly here. Today, our field cameras have to pack up, and we're not getting any, we're not going to get any more video from SpaceX due to the classified request from Germany. So we are going to lose our camera feeds here. But really quickly, let me just say thank you. There are quite a few people that did super chats. Alan, Brandon Land, Roof, Wolflim, Tess T, Alan again, Aaron Love, Gilbert, James came through again, Thomas Tate. We do appreciate y'all's support. Sorry I can't get through some of the questions there and the regular questions, non-super chat questions. We are just out of time on the broadcast here today because we have to pack up our cameras and come on back in. So let me do this. Let me say thank you to everybody for watching today. And thanks to the folks in the studio with us. Start with Chris Gebhardt. Chris, thank you for hanging out with us today.
My absolute pleasure. You might hear me in a few hours too.
All right. And also we had Mr. Thomas Berghardt. Thank you, Thomas, for being here.
Oh, always a pleasure. And again, stay tuned for more launch coverage in less than 24 hours.
Excellent. And for the first time on a launch broadcast, Alicia Siegel with Intrepid Museum. Alicia, thank you so much for waking up and hanging out with us this morning.
Thanks for having me. Let's do it again sometime.
Absolutely. Hey, out there in the field, also, we had Mr. Michael Baylor and Pauline Ackelin. They rolled out and, let's not say saw the launch today, but experienced the launch today. Massive thanks to them. They are going to have to clear out the cameras here. So for now, we're going to go ahead and wrap up our broadcast for the launch of SARah-1 on that SpaceX Falcon 9 and successful RTLS landing back there out at Vandenberg. I'm John Galloway for NASASpaceflight. As always, happy we could share this with you. Thank you for all your support. Thanks to Brilliant as well. If you haven't yet, check out brilliant.org/NASASpaceflight, and we will see you nerds later. Thanks so much
tonight
for watching.
for Global Star. We'll see you tonight.
Tonight,
for Global
yes.
Star.
We'll see you in a few hours for Global Star. All right. Later, nerds.
We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be nominal.
AM EDT reception looks good. Toggling up. Roger and roll, Atlantis.
Water towers fly!
Tango Delta nominal.
Flight outside SCE off. Say again, SCE off.
Yikes. You bet. Concur. We don't need any more of these.